Good evening, Martin Mulligan, my good friend, former great champion. I don't know. You have too many titles. I don't know if I should call you the man from Fila, the man who played the final in Wimbledon, the man who won times Rome. You have too many. There are too many things I could connect to you. How are you?
Good. Thank you for the kind words, Ubaldo. Yes, I mean, we see each other at tournaments every so often, but very not that often do we get to speak face to face in depth.
No, that's true. That's true. Well, you're too busy. You are too important. You are a VIP. So and then you're always with the top players, and so it's difficult to join you. Anyway, tell me first of all, how is in San Francisco, because you live there, and I'd like to know with this virus how things are going. Are getting worse and worse also in the States?
Yeah. Well, they're saying here in San Francisco that in California, particularly that in 2 weeks the big hit will come. So we're still about 2 weeks behind New York. So with so many people living, like 50 million people in California, I think it's going to be a big problem. They are already turning some sports fields into makeshift hospitals. In fact, I just heard today that the National Tennis Center, the Billie Jean King Center in New York, turned into a hospital.
Yeah, yeah, unbelievable. Very, very sad stories everywhere. As you know, in Italy,
Yeah.
we were probably leaving the worst situation after China, but maybe we started earlier than others, and we hope we found some good sort of system, but it's very difficult. Maybe others will take advantage of our experience. Maybe.
Yeah, they're learning all the time because they haven't found a vaccine against this virus at the moment. But with more time that passes, obviously, they're saying that they will find a vaccine, but it has to go through several forms of approval. And they say it's still about a good. If it goes through the normal process, it will be about a year away. But they're predicting here that it will come again in the wintertime, next winter.
Yeah, oh my God. Well, let's fingers crossed and hope that doesn't happen, because they are talking in the tennis world. Someone said, oh, maybe we should think about using the off season to fill it up with some tennis, if we will be able to. What do you think about that? Because the idea, I think, came from United States, saying, why don't we use the off season to play some tournaments?
Yes, I think the off season, it would be we don't need an off season now. We can go right through till October 2021. I think soon as the players need to play tournaments, and I think it would be very good to begin the season as soon as they can and play the tournaments in that period. But even more important than that, Ubaldo, I think with this interruption to the world tennis circuit, it's a good time to. It could be a good time for the powers to be to decide on a better international tennis schedule, because I think the schedule as it is at the moment is very complicated and not too many people understand it. I know you and we understand Masters 1000, 250 series, 500 series, but people have no idea what these are. The average person has no idea. And if we think that they do, that's not good enough, because we need to attract more people who don't follow tennis to the sport via television. And we need to have very good television commentators. We need to have the tournaments televised and understood better. have play the try and have good matches on television. Not necessarily. I mean, if they're playing in the United States and they want to have John Isner against somebody mediocre on center court, okay, fair enough. But that's maybe not the match to televise. It's better to televise a match that the experts, let's say, feel is a better match, because we need to show off our sport. And one other thing, Ubaldo, one of the things I don't understand is when you go to a Grand Slam and you see they have the second week, they have the older players play, older champions play, and they have the junior event. They put the junior event way down on the back courts, and the older players are playing on the show courts. When a company like like Nabisco or has a new product in the supermarket, as soon as you walk in, you see the new product. I mean, we put the new product, which is the juniors, way down the back. The people never get down there. And secondly, there's no program for the juniors. The people walk in, they see, so and so is playing another player. They don't know who they are. They have no idea how old they are. They don't have where they're from, anything. And so the knowledge that, yes, you can get all this knowledge from the internet, and the keen tennis fans have it, but the average fan has no idea.
So, but when would you schedule then the juniors? Because I mean, the problem is,
I would schedule the juniors the second week, like it is, but don't play the old champions. Who cares to watch the old champions? I know that's kind of a harsh statement, but the old champions. If you saw the old champions in their prime, the way they play today is not the same. So
no.
you're seeing a different type of tennis. Yeah, you see a named player. You go home and you say, "Oh, I saw
Mulligan."
Yeah, I saw him play, but who cares? Who cares? Nobody cares. That's why I think we need to showcase the junior events much better, much better. We don't do a good job, tennis.
Yeah, well, that I don't know. That's juniors belong in a way more to the ITF than to the slams. No, so one of the reasons could be that ITF would like to support them, but the tournament who are the slams who are the owner of themselves, and they don't let's say solidarize too much. They don't care. They want to sell tickets, and they think about the big names. They think that John McEnroe and Patrick McEnroe playing doubles on court, I don't know, 17 is better than to watch a junior, a senior, 17 years old coming up. And that's a
no,
mistake.
I understand what you're saying, and that is the thinking of today. But we need to think about tomorrow, not today, and that we need to educate the people, the fans, about who the new players are. Like, for example, if you have a 1,000 series tournament, you should be obliged to have a junior tournament as well. Maybe not 32 players, maybe not 16, maybe 8, but have a junior tournament, because you need some matches on the outside courts for the last days of the event.
Oh, it's a good idea, but that probably it would happen if ATP and ITF had a better relationship, while they're always enemies almost.
Well, that's the problem about the sport. I mean, FIFA, which is the World Soccer Authority, they control soccer in every country. In tennis, the ITF, which is the International Federation, they control nothing. Only the Davis Cup and the Fed Cup, and they're involved with the Grand Slams a little bit, but they have nothing to do with the circuit, and this is not good. The ITF should have stepped up a long time ago, and when we had the Pro Council, and even before that, to try and take a little bit more control. But there were people who were not capable to do that at the time, and so this was the birth of the ATP and the WTA, and now they've taken control. Their job, let's say their mandate is to find jobs for the players. That's their mandate. So, they have to Are they thinking about tennis in the future? Yes, they indirectly they are, but the ITF is the body that thinks about the future of tennis. I mean, look, which young tournament does the ATP sponsor, or the WTA? The only tournament is the next gen, and that's that's one place in Milan, and for 1 week, and that's it. I mean, they don't promote the junior tournament, junior players anywhere else.
Yeah, yeah, just and then it's just 8 players under 20 or so. I mean, doesn't really make a difference. I do agree. As at the same time, I remember that before 1990, the calendar was even more confused. I mean, in a way, before what they now are called the Master 1000, we didn't know exactly, apart from the four slams, who had more or less the same calendar. All the other tournaments were very much confused. You couldn't really remember
Yes.
exactly which tournament was played when. Now, at least even for those people who don't know or follow tennis, there is a vague idea that, okay, March is Indian Wells and Miami, August there is Canadian Open and Cincinnati, even if I don't. I'm not happy with the fact that they are back to back or they took too much space. So, what do you think should come out? I mean, maybe this situation could finally push every different. Uh, how do you say, leadership or power to find a better solution. Like when we spoke in Italian the other day, you mentioned the chance to transform the circuit like a Formula One uh, um,
Yeah.
calendar.
Yes. I really like that idea, because I think, look, why all the Grand Slams are 2 weeks and all the 1000 series are 1 week, with the exception of Indian Wells and Miami. Why do they have 2 weeks? Why? When all the other 1000 series have 1 week. So, I mean, this is a good time for Andrea Gaudenzi and Massimo Cavelli and let's say Bill, not Steve Simon, to get together and try to have a better calendar, because look, there will be tournaments that will not existing anymore after all this is over, because they will not be able to afford a tournament with sponsors. Maybe some sponsors drop out, etc. So, these are drastic times, so we can take advantage of this situation and show some leadership and do something with the circuit, because the way it is at the moment, we don't understand. We understand Formula One, maybe the Americans a little bit less, but around the world, everybody understands what Formula One is, and there's a race here, a race there. And, like even in Singapore, they have a race in the nighttime. So, they're doing things that are different. So what has tennis done that's different in the last a few years? We've slowed up the sport something incredible. I mean, the time between points is too long. We have to forget about the people who go to the tournament, because that's a small minority. We have to worry about the television audience, because that's the really big audience. So what we have to make it appeal to these people who are watching on TV. If it's too slow, you change the channel if you're not a fan. If it's fast, look. We have a chance now to speed up the no time between points, and sit down, okay, because they can do some ads with the TV. So that's one of the reasons why they had the sit down from between ends, because they wanted to be able to have 2 minutes to do ads. This is all for commercial reasons. But does it help the sport? Yes, it helps the sport for prize money, but it doesn't help the overall interest in the sport. So I think we need to do what is good for the interest of the spectators,
So
television
we
spectators.
so So we don't need anymore, for instance, the towel after each point. Do we need
No, no,
where are you using the towel during your matches?
no,
When
we never had a towel. We
when
never
you
had a towel.
Rome, how many times you use the towel during the final you won in Rome in 63, 65, and 67?
Ubaldo, only when we changed ends. That's the only time we used the towel. And there was no 25 seconds between points. It was immediate. When somebody had an injury, you had to continue, or that was it. I mean, the toilet break. It's used for a tactical move. It's not necessarily used for because you need to use the bathroom. So I think that we have too many things that slow up the sport. We need to have it much quicker.
Yeah, yeah. Listen, I can see that, first of all, being not anymore that young, you have modern ideas. Slow, I mean, to fasten speed up the game. It's something that young guys point out that they should happen. And TV and tennis, sometimes a match lasts 4 hours or 5 hours. Can I remind you a bad moment or a great moment of your career? One great moment was in 62 when you had a match point versus Rod Laver, uh, which became a bad moment afterwards because you didn't convert. Can you remember that moment? It was in 1962. If you had converted, then Rod Laver would have not won realized the Grand Slam.
Yes, I mean, of course I remember that, Ubaldo. It was, the quarterfinals of the French Open. We were playing on center court, and it was late in the day. And yes, I had a match point. He put in I had match point in the fourth set, 2-1 to me, and he put in 2-1 to me, 4-5, 30-40 on his serve, and he put in a second serve in the middle of the court, and I took it on my forehand. I was able to move around it. I took it on my forehand, but unfortunately for me, but he did a very gutsy move. He came to the net on the second serve, and I had two shots: the cross court or the one down the line, and I hit the easier shot, which was the one down the line. But being a great champion like he was, he anticipated that and hit a winner off it, and then we went on for another hour or so, and then he eventually beat me. But yes,
What was the final score was 10-8 in the fifth?
fourth set, yes, and then 6-2 in the fifth, I think.
Yeah, correct. So, but then what happens that 1 month later or even less, you find yourself against versus Rod Laver in Wimbledon, and you are in the final. So there was a great moment for your career, I guess. And there was also somebody who didn't like too much tennis. It was a lady called Queen Elizabeth who did like always more horses and ascot than men and women.
Yeah, maybe she thought we were horses. No, that's not funny. But no, I mean, it was a big occasion, and Rod, remembering, well, I would imagine he was thinking about Paris, and he wanted to kill me, and he did. He beat me, in 6-2, 6-2, 6-1 in about an hour, and I mean, no match lasts an hour today, but in the olden times when you couldn't sit down and you weren't allowed to towel down between points, it went very quickly. But yes, he and then afterwards the presentation, I'm sure she felt a little sorry for me because it was a very one-sided final, and she was very kind in her words, and maybe she spent a little bit more time speaking to me than she did with Rod, but she was kind of a nice person, and she said a very humane side of herself.
Yeah, well, it was their first time in Wimbledon. The second time was in 1977 when Virginia Wade won Wimbledon, and so and that was the 100 years of Wimbledon. So she came only in special occasion, and the first was when Martin Mulligan was playing tennis.
Thank you, Ubaldo.
she, someone must have informed her. Look, while
Fortunately, she was disillusioned.
while I want to inform our radio listener or website listener that in 1967, Mr. Martin Mulligan played 22 tournaments and won 17 out of them. And you were number 3 in the world. I mean, you practically have beaten everybody, correct?
Well, I didn't look at it that way, but I probably beat a lot of players. Yes, I don't know what my record was, but yes, it was a very good year for me. But in those days, we played a tournament every week, and to be very honest with you, the tournaments didn't have the same depth as they have today, because today the level has got a lot better. But we used to play 5-set singles from the first round and 5-set doubles from the first round. And we used to play singles and doubles every week. So there was a lot of tennis, in those 22 weeks.
And sometimes, like between Paris and Wimbledon, there was just 1 week, and maybe I think some between Rome and Paris also. Someone was arriving late in Paris because he was still playing in Rome or something like that. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes, the final in Rome used to be on Tuesday, and the French Open began on the Monday. So if you played the final in Rome, like the years I won in Rome, I arrived in Paris on Wednesday, and some people were already playing a second round match, and so it was a bigger disadvantage to do that well in Rome, because it diminished your chances in the French. And then, when Borg won his 5 Wimbledons and the French events, there was only 1 week between the French Open final and Wimbledon. So and the courts at Wimbledon, the grass courts at Wimbledon in those days were very, very fast. So, he had to go from playing on the baseline to playing a more attacking game. And so through the years, he did improve his serve a lot, and he was a very difficult player to play, but he had great results on both surfaces. And something like Nadal has won the French so many times, and he's won Wimbledon a couple of times. So but there is a longer break between the French and Wimbledon now.
Sure. You were, in a way, a little exception to the Australian tennis, because you were probably playing better on clay than maybe on grass, even if grass you played the final in Wimbledon. But you were more consistent, winning Rome 3 times, winning Monte Carlo, Hamburg. A bit strange, no, for someone born in Australia.
Yes, I mean, but we say we played a lot on grass, and yes, there were a lot of grass courts in Australia, but during the week we would play on clay courts, because they were the grass courts were only in the big tennis centers, which was in Sydney, where I'm from, was White City, and there were a few other clubs that had a couple of grass courts, but most of the tennis was played on clay, on an ant bed clay, which is a little bit faster than the European clay, but still clay. So we all learned on clay in Australia, and even today, maybe they're using a different surface, but in my day, everybody played on clay, and that's why in that period, Lou Hode, Rosewall, you know, they played well on both surfaces. Yes, the Australians were more adapt to play on the grass because had they were able to the serve and volley, which was something that Hopman used to uh, train everybody to do. And you know, the first volley became important. Some players volleyed much better than others, but the first volley was the most important.
John
I'm sorry,
volley, unbelievable. And say, I lost me. I said John Newcomb was one who was playing 7 ball.
Yes,
Lost,
John,
no?
John
Problems.
Newcomb, John Newcomb, like Tony Roach, he won he won. It was always difficult player on grass, and he won the French Open as well.
Yeah. Listen, Martin, and what happened for some reason you played in Davis Cup for Italy instead than for Australia. Now I can see that we have some troubles with the connection. You disappear a little bit, but then you come back as you were coming back on the tennis court. So what happened? What happened? Maybe Hopman didn't think you were good enough at the net, and that was the reason why.
I don't know, because like in Australia used to pick a 7-man Davis Cup squad, because in those days there was the challenge round. So Australia was the winner the previous year, so they only had to play one match, which was the challenge round. And so we used to pick a 7-man Davis Cup squad, and Harry Hopman, he was let's say the czar of tennis in Australia, and he you know, he even though, you know, I won like 62. I played the final in Wimbledon. 63, I won the Italian. 64, I won Monte Carlo, and Hamburg. And so in those years, I mean, he never put me in the 7-man Davis Cup team. So I felt that whatever feeling he had towards me or towards my game was not to my advantage. So I was speaking with Nicola Pietrangeli at the time, and Nicola said, "Hey, Martino, why don't you come to play doubles with me and come to Italy?" Because Orlando Cirola was stopping to play in those days. So
Yeah.
I thought about it, and I said, "Okay," because he said, you know, you would come under the control of the Italian Federation, which would allow you to play, you know, the 52 weeks in the year, exception you had to play Rome. But the Australian Federation made the Australian players stay in Australia from October the 1st until March the 31st, 6 months. So I thought, well, you know, this could be a nice thing. And then Nicola got Giorgio Neri, who was the president of Virtus Bologna, involved. And Giorgio Neri was also the president of the Italian Federation. And he said, look, Martin, you can also help the young junior players like Panata, Bertolucci, Barazzuti, Zuccarelli, Crotta, etc., and play and help them during the wintertime in Formia. So if you would come to play for Virtus Bologna and then help the juniors in January, February every year, you know, we would be able to help you financially. So I said, okay. So that's what I did for many, many years. And I was very happy to do that, because it was a chance for me to play on clay, to learn to play better on clay, and also to try to speak Italian. But I didn't realize, you know, what the future had in store. I never thought that, you know, I married an Italian girl. My 2 kids were born in Italy. So, you know, I never thought that it would reach as far as it did. But it was I'm so happy that I did, because you know, most English, I don't speak Italian that well, but I try. And
you do.
Thank you, Ubaldo. But you're very patient. But you have to. I remember Sergio Palmieri saying, "Oh, one day," because he was down in Formula 2. He said, "One day you will think in Italian," and I thought, "Yeah, that will never be the day." But slowly it happens, and I was lucky because I used those 2 months every year. I was there for about 6 or 7 or 8 years in Formula in those 2 months, and it gave me a nice camaraderie with the Italian boys, and also to help them, but also to improve my English.
But then
Sorry, Italian.
you play Davis Cup versus Spain, no?
Yes.
For each, and I must say, because we didn't say at the beginning, that your grandparents from your mother's sides were from a place close to Vittorio Veneto in Veneto, no? And
Or so,
so that Orsago, yeah. So
yes, I
so
played.
that that's why
I,
they could ask you to play as an oriundo, as we say, like in soccer. There were many
yeah.
players playing for the Italian soccer team, football team, Altafini from Brazil, Sivori from Argentina, and others. So you were entitled to play at that time, but you played, I think, against. Spain, and there were a lot of somehow critics because some people said, "Oh, why do we have to find someone in Australia to play for Italy?" No.
Yes, I mean, look, I, I was very happy to play for Italy, and I enjoyed it, and I gave 100% of myself. But when you think about it, in those days, to live in another country for um, for 3 4 months every year uh, was more difficult. Today, with the world, that the way people have changed continents, etc., it's much easier. So obviously the rule has been changed, and I think that yes, I probably did not probably I did take away the place of some of the or one of the younger Italian players when I was in the team, and maybe if I was in their position, I would feel a little disappointed. But I think those days in Formia, those years in Formia, I created a bond with the players, the younger players, and I'm not saying they were 100% behind the thought, but it was not such a terrible thing because we were all friends, and so
Sure.
yes, I may have taken one of their places, but we were friends, and they knew that it was something that was true because I tried to help Italian tennis in those days, and um, through Giorgio Neri and Nicola, and so it was. I was, I was happy to play for Italy. Yes.
Yeah, and then I must say that everyone who knows you likes you, so which is not easy in the tennis circuit because normally there are some people jealous, some people dislike this or that, while you have always had, let's say, a lot of sympathy and friendship from everybody, as far as I know, and that helps, no?
Yes, it does. It does help, and I think one of the things is when you play on the court in those days. I mean, tennis was very competitive as it is today. More financial rewards today than there was in my day, but still, we played for the victory, for the glory, and I think that it was. They were different times. They were different times, and I I think that we really love the sport today. Maybe the players love the sport, but a lot of them love the sport because of the financial rewards. And so
Yeah,
I think we really love the sport in those days because there are a lot of sacrifices to make. and several players made those sacrifices and became better players through that. Yes, the tennis in those days was dominated by the Australians and the Americans, basically. Italy did very well in the Davis Cup, reaching the challenge round the first time against Australia many years at that period. But, you know, it was basically Australia and America
Yes.
in the challenge round. And, uh, you know, they were the two strong countries. But today, you know, look, the tennis has become better in so many other countries around the world, like in Serbia, in Germany, in you know, the Eastern Europe.
Exactly.
It's incredible. South America, very good today.
Yeah. Listen, Martin, I see that you are wearing a jacket with an F. With that F stays for Fila, I guess. For some reason, I have the idea that you were involved with this company. Would you tell me, am I wrong?
You are right, Ubaldo. Many years ago, Nicola Pietranci and I were and Castigliano and Vittorio Crotta. We were playing an exhibition in Osago, which is up in the in Veneto region, and we played the exhibition. And then after the exhibition, we sat down with some people in the clubhouse, and at that time, one of the owners of Diodora was there, and he said to me, "Hey, Martin, would you be able to help us get some players to play with Theodora shoes?" So I said, yes, I can try. And so I started a relationship with the Diodora company because in those days, Diodora only made shoes. And then Giorgio Fantini from Fila came to me and said, would you like to join Fila? And we can get some players to play with Fila clothes. And, you know, if they play with Diodora, that's fine. Diodora shoes. So I said, yeah, okay. So that was the start of, you know, when Borg and Diodora, Becker, Diodora. And so, you know, it was a nice period. And then I created a big, Diodora started to make apparel and Fila started to make shoes. So, you know, I had to make a decision which company I would stay with. And I decided to go with Fila because um, I don't remember the reason why, but I decided to go there, and then uh, several years
Then
later,
you met somebody called Bjorn Borg, or you found somebody called
yeah,
Bjorn Borg
yes,
that was, you thought it was maybe a good player, who knows, or a good testimonial. That was a
yes,
good shot, good, good,
yes,
good.
yes. Well, you know, I mean, I think those were probably the initial days of the sponsorship of players in tennis because there was not, yes, I mean, certain players wore certain brands, but, you know, there was not a financial relationship between the company and the player, but slowly a more commercial association arose because the players or the companies realized the players could give very good visibility to a brand. And if you were a top player, or maybe not even a top player, but a good player in your own country, you were valuable. And so, you know, Fila started the sponsorship, but Fila also was was the first company to make colored apparel. And so that was one of the reasons, you know, the brand became very popular right from the word go. It became maybe in not in Italy, it was always a strong company, but in America, it was a very elite company because the price of the product was so high because of import duties, etc. And it became
There were the thin vertical stripes and the red color, which Borg, but also
correct,
Panatta made very
correct,
popular.
correct. I mean, Adriano was the first player uh, to come to Fila, and then Borg, but Bertolucci as well. But yes, they wore the product very well, and you know, in those days, Fila had three categories of because when you make a product, sometimes you have the first quality. Sometimes there's a little thing that's not so good in the product, so it becomes second quality. And sometimes there was something even more not so good, and it became second quality. So we had
Yeah.
first, second, and third quality. And so, Fila was very careful.
To me, I think that you gave me 5 shares of the third quality when you were sponsoring me. Because I got only clothes because I wasn't good enough, and but I don't. I'm not complaining. I'm joking. I'm joking. Don't worry.
Listen, you come from a great city. I mean, I played at Tennis Club Firenze many times. I love the city. The people were nice. I mean, it's but I don't remember those days. That's my business.
It wasn't you. I wasn't I wasn't so good player that could talk with you. I had to talk with the number
I
10 of Fila. 10, the number 10 manager of Fila under you. So tell me something. Apart from Borg and Panatta, then suddenly there is a story that I like it a lot. The one that you were approaching John McEnroe, because that I think it was funny. I mean. You saw McEnroe, who was a promising player. You say, well, I have to approach him. Then you spoke with his father. And then what happened?
Yes, well, he was wearing Fila. I mean, Stanford University is a college that is sponsored by Nike, and McEnroe went to Stanford, but he and Peter Rennert, another American young player at the time, they both wore Fila, and causing some problems for the Dick Gould, who was the coach there at the time, I'm sure. But in any case, they wore Fila, and then McEnroe played the semi-final in Wimbledon in Fila as an amateur, and then his dad said to me, "Look, this time next year he's going to turn professional." So we discussed it internally at Fila, and at that time, Fila was owned by the Fiat Group, and we decided the Fila family had a small participation, but slowly the Fila Group took over, and we had a factory in Voghera, which is near Genoa, and which they decided to try to make wooden tennis rackets. So Dr. Frechet, Enrico Frechet, who was the big boss at Fila at that time, said, okay, look, we have to get McEnroe to play in the Fila clothes, which he was already doing, but we need to get him for the racket. So we took his Wilson racket and we tried to prepare a racket that would be to his liking, and they would send it to me in San Francisco, and Stanford University is very near San Francisco, and I would take it to John. John would try and say, no, we need to make this adjustment, etc. But one day we were in a hurry because we were late, and so Fila sent the racket directly to John McEnroe, and so I called the father that night, and I said, a couple of days later actually, and I said, how did John like the racket? He said, listen, you didn't spell his name correctly. Fila spelled it on the racket MACENROE, and it should be MC. On all the other rackets, we did it with MC. It was just on this racket, and that caused all the problems.
Cause all the problems. I can tell you what you are not telling me, because I think John McEnroe said exactly, because I found what it was his reaction. He said, if they can't spell my name right, there is no fucking way that they can make the racket right.
That's a good critique, yes.
Yeah. Anyway, after McEnroe, whatever it happened, well, you had many other players, because you were able to find. I remember someone: Gabriela Sabatini, Monica Seles, Jennifer Capriati. Through Stefano was a good. You could talk to him also in Italian, and then Kleisters, and then more recently, I think Pliskova and and Chilich. Then I don't know if there is any. There is also Barthi, maybe.
And the one who won the Australian Open this year, Kennan.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kennan. Yes.
Yeah, and Kenan, sure. I saw. How Fila is doing? Because now he's not Italian anymore; he's Korean, correct?
The gentleman who, well, the a group in the USA bought Fila from the Fiat Group, and um, they were a venture capitalist company, and we had a few other brands which they sold off, and then they tried to make the bottom line at Fila look very good because they wanted to resell it. Gene Yun, who made the Fila shoes for us in Korea, he was the gentleman who bought the company globally after Cerebus, and since then it's South Korean owned, and Gene has been with the company almost as long as I have, and he loves the company. He's a golfer. He's not necessarily a tennis player, but he realizes that the heritage of Fila was in tennis. And so, we've been able to maintain and increase our position in the tennis world. And, now with leisure wear at the moment in around the world, especially in China and the US, the Fila leisure wear is really hot or hot. The young kids, they really like it, and so it's a good brand at the moment. Yes.
Can we say? Do you have any? Can you tell me? I don't know. What is the turnaround of the company? I mean, is it a?
Yeah, it's like $2 billion, which is 2 billion, around 2 billion euro. Yeah, yes,
Yeah, well, impressive,
yes.
impressive. And then I saw that you are sponsoring. I mean, you are connected to Indian Wells tournament. You Fila is, I don't know, dressing the ball boys and the linesmen sometimes umpires in different tournaments. No, is it
Yeah,
always you who took care of this or not? Is it? It was you who
yeah.
managed?
That
Yes.
we yes started. That's why Frachet in '79 he sent me to. I was living in Rome, and I used to go to Biella uh, on uh, on Monday and come back Friday. And then he said to me, "Look, we have an importer in California, in San Carlos," and he said, "I would like you to go there, and we are going to buy the company from the importer, and we want to set up the same promotional activities that we have in Italy, which was with the teaching pros, to the grassroots level, and which is something that we did." He said, "So I would like you to go to San Francisco with your family and stay there." So I decided that that's something. I talked it over with my family, and we decided that would be a nice opportunity. So I did that, and you know, I started things going with Fila. We got really involved in tennis because of the pricing of the brand, because we had to pay the freight, which was minimal, but the import duties were almost 80%. So the product became quite expensive in the US, and so. But it was the first color, was the first colored outfits, and Borg was winning, Panata was winning. So the brand got a lot of visibility in tennis. Tennis was going through a little bit of a boom in the US at that time. So then some Hollywood people started to wear it, and we were involved in some movies and things. And then slowly the brand got very hot, and our sales increased greatly. But then we went through a period when, uh, let's say, Cerebus decided to buy us um, uh, when we were still owned by Fiat. The the they in order to increase the sales greatly, um, uh, it was suggested that uh, whoever was in charge of Fila at that time, I mean, it was a person by the name of Alden Sheets, and they said that, if you increase the sales to this point, we can give you a terrific bonus. So he thought it out. He said, okay. And so what he did was to reduce the quality by making it in the Far East and bringing down the prices, so more and more people could afford the brand. But that slowly eroded the prestige of the brand in the United States too, because the quality was not as good. So we may have sacrificed quality for quantity, and maybe sales were okay, but slowly the brand started to not maintain its position or its annual uh, volume position. So then, Cerebus came in and started to say, okay, we will make some changes. They tried to make some changes. Um, it didn't work that well. And then, but in the meantime, many companies had decided to, including some of the good Italian companies, decided to also manufacture in the Far East. And so people were more able to accept made in China, whereas before, 10 years earlier, they were not able to accept that because made in Italy was the top of the line.
Of course, of
So
course.
now we make a lot of product in the Far East, not necessarily in China, but different countries like everybody else. Our uh, designs, our models are quite nice, and we've gone into leisure wear, which in China is very, very strong, and in the US is very strong now. And so our leisure wear business has become very, very big. And, tennis is the sport that gives us the visibility. And, we'll always maintain that because it's our heritage, really.
Of course. I remember there was a moment a few years ago when especially black people, I think, were buying in the States a lot of black shoes from
Yeah.
Fila. And it was very
Yes.
popular. So I don't know why. I mean, but they
No,
were.
no, but because, it was, as I said before, it was prestigious at one time. Then we went down. Now our shoe volume is much higher than our apparel volume, much higher.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
yes, the shoe, a lot of leisure wear shoes.
Okay. And what is your biggest competitor? Adidas, Nike,
Yeah.
more than Lotto, for instance.
Oh yes, yes. Like in the United States, definitely. I mean, Nike and Adidas, Goliaths. I mean, they're giants. I mean, we we don't want to take them on because they're much stronger and have bigger volume than us. But after those two, yes, we can say Fila. And so, where we have a nice position, a nice little niche in the marketplace, and we're selling well, and um, you know. Yeah, things are going very well. We support the brand well. We give visibility in different, a lot of tennis tournaments. Um, and as I said before, that's our grassroots. So that's where we want to keep our visibility. And then we do a lot of product placement in movies and other things. And so,
Did you give
so
were you dealing also with Hollywood's actors? I mean, yourself or somebody else was doing?
yes.
Which actor have you met or actresses?
Oh, Lloyd Bridges, when he was doing many years ago, and his son Jeff Bridges. I mean, they were big Fila fans, and then uh, Wonder Woman. She was a lot of the wardrobe people in Hollywood. It was more we made a good relationship with, or I made a good relationship with the Hollywood people. We got an outside agency to help us with that, and we worked with the Hollywood wardrobe people, because they are the ones that choose the designs or the product that the actors will wear. And slowly, we were involved in a lot of tennis celebrity pro-ams, which used to take place in those days. They're no longer in existence because maybe a lot of the older um, celebrities don't play tennis as much. But you know, we had a good positioning in the marketplace. Yes.
Okay. Listen, I have, first of all, I want to thank you because you have been incredibly nice. I have the impression that even if you're not too young anymore, but you don't want to rest. You want to go on and on with Fila, even if I heard that there is your son who would perhaps like to replace you. I mean, I heard that there is a Martin Mulligan Jr. who wants to become the big boss in Fila. Is that correct? He wants to put you on the in front of the TV.
Well, you know, I'm happy to help him, and yes, he loves tennis. He went to UCLA. He graduated from there, and he's a very keen tennis fan. He traveled with Mark Philippus. He worked for Octagon, a sports management company, for many years, and so, you know, now he's working with Fila, and I'm trying to help him with our tennis projects, and yeah, eventually he will take over. Yes.
All right. Listen, Martin, thanks a lot. I really hope that I'll see you again very soon because that would mean that tennis will start again. Apparently, just in these hours, Wimbledon is taking a decision, or maybe when this contact we have, this live chat, maybe will go on the air on ubitennis.net tomorrow, day after tomorrow. It may be that Wimbledon will have already cancelled his tournament for this year. And that's a sad moment, but I think that there are not many possibilities that they can change their mind. I don't know what do you expect, but it will be probably over when this connection,
Yeah, I think you're right, Ubaldo. I think Wimbledon is going to be abandoned. I think, you know, we have to think about the U.S. Open. I mean, I'm not so sure that's going to take place either.
No, neither I. And then many people say it depends also a lot on the insurance, because if the tournament is insured against the epidemia, the pandemia, then maybe they don't lose so much money, you know. And apparently there are only 2 tournaments, and I was told one of them is Rome. They don't have insurance. That's why they want to play at all cost. I mean, I'm not 100% sure about it, but it's a rule.
I mean, look, most of the promoters in the Italian Open case, the Federation and Wimbledon, they rely on the tournament for their annual funding of the projects that they have in each country. So obviously they'll be trying to have the tournament because I mean, the Italian tournament is a prestigious tournament, so you know it deserves to be played. And I think with the weather conditions in Rome, it's possible to play even maybe later in the year, even in late October too. Not
Sure.
ideal, but then you have to think, oh, if I have a tournament in late October and I have a tournament in May, will the sponsor be able to afford this? Because who knows what the financial situation of the world is going to be when everything settles down.
Sure. Listen, thanks a lot, Martino. I really appreciate. I hope that all our readers, even the young ones, will now know you more. Because while I saw you, my parents saw you while you had a lot of fans who today are 60 years old or 70. Well, I mean, there are many 20 years old that I think they deserve, you deserve that they know you. And, winner in Rome, 63, 65, 67, runner up in Wimbledon, 62. Bye bye, Martino. Thanks a lot.
Bye bye, Aldo. Grazie. Ciao.